Добро вечер. Во студиото наш вечерашен гостин е амбасадорот на ОБСЕ Ралф Бред, кому ова му е последен ден од мандатот во Македонија. Good evening, Mr. Ambassador. While we are doing this interview in Kumanovo, again there is a tension because there is a police securing the public buildings. What is your assessment on what happened last weekend in Kumanovo?
First, I have to say good evening to the viewers. I'm sorry to hear that again tensions are going on there. As you said, we are there in Kumanovo with monitoring teams. As far as last weekend is concerned, as soon as we were aware of problems and tensions going on, we were there active with monitoring teams, with several monitoring teams. And when the situation escalated, we wanted to come closer. But the police cordon was, of course, there. And we could not go in the center, also for security reasons, in the center of the events. But we were, from our headquarters here in Skopje, in communication, also with the authorities, with political parties. And we fortunately also requested by the authorities, we were able to de-escalate, to help to de-escalate the situation and to prevent further casualties. But as you say, and we must observe the situation on the spot.
But the leader of DUI, Mr. Ahmeti, last evening in the interview for one TV station, said that he called the OSCE mission while there was an incident going on, the shooting in Kumanovo. And that somehow the OSCE representatives who were in Kumanovo were involved in trying to secure a corridor for surrendering the armed fighters or terrorists, as police said, in Kumanovo. Have been they involved in securing this corridor?
Well, I mean, we did that what we could do in this situation to help to end the hostilities and to avoid further casualties. Of course, under the circumstances that were prevailing there.
The international community, all ambassadors, after this incident, then they characterized it as an isolated phenomenon. Do you think there is still a danger, maybe after this incident, of a new interactive conflict as in 2001?
What we saw so far in Kumanovo, but also in the reactions, from the reactions in the social media, we do not see that this incident is antagonizing the ethnic communities. Many people called for calm, and they had a lot of support. There were many acts and appeals for solidarity and for inter-ethnic harmony, including also from some of the media. For the moment, I don't see that this incident as such would cause serious inter-ethnic tensions.
14 years after the Ohrid framework agreement, do you think that this agreement work, or it's only a paper and political parties are using it to employ their voters in the public administration, for example? So right now we haven't reached its aim to get a multi-ethnic society, but we have a deeply divided society.
Yeah. I have to say that the implementation of the Ohrid Framework Agreement is in the center of the mandate. This is one of the reasons we are here. And we have seen a lot of progress based on the agreement, for example, that more members of the minority communities are now represented in the public administration. We have seen also progress in the access to the judiciary. We have seen progress in the in the decentralization. This means in the right of the municipalities. But I have to agree that the agreement as such could not create a harmonious society. There are still a lot of tasks open, and we see, unfortunately, tendency in the residential areas, in the education, for separated activities. And we think that we have, together with the authorities, there is still a lot to do, and we want to help to bring about and to develop more harmonious relations.
Do you think that political parties in the government don't implement this agreement properly?
Of course, there are different interpretations. There are people not only in the parties in the country that say the OSCE framework agreement was already too much, a step too far, and others say it is not enough and we need a new OSCE framework agreement. Of course, in charge is the Secretariat for the implementation, and we would like to see more activities, especially also for the review. And from the review then, based on this, maybe new activities.
This incident in Kumanovo happened in the middle of the big political crisis which is still going on. Yesterday the leaders of 4 leading political parties met for the first time after this crisis began. The only thing they agreed is to continue to meet, and the meeting is also will happen on Monday. Can we expect any compromise to be reached?
Well, as you said, they just started to negotiate. We see now in this development certain dynamics, but of course it depends. Negotiations are also always include an element of tactics. The parties must see what is at stake. I mean, parties now, all those who are involved, what is at stake, and they must find a way forward. And because politics can never stop, they must always go on. Decisions have to be taken, challenges have to be mastered, and I think there is no alternative but to come to solutions.
We don't know what is in stake, as you said. We only know that the opposition is asking for resigning from the Prime Minister and the whole government, and the government is asking the opposition to come back to the parliament. So how the compromise can be reached in this situation? They're really on the opposite sides.
I mean, it would go too far for an international organization to develop a master plan or to say whether somebody should resign or who should do what. I mean, the appeal to go back to the parliament, we conveyed to the leader of the opposition since long, and not us, the entire international community. Yeah, but because only there they have the possibilities to fully work with the possibilities the parliament offers. The other solutions have to be seen.
What they should discuss primarily? What should be on the table?
On the table,
points.
Yes. On the table should be how improvements can be reached in the fields, for example, of the media situation, elections, the independence of the judiciary, and the equal chances for all citizens. Things that were discussed since long. I mean, we don't talk about completely new issues. And the inter-ethnic relations, of course.
The international community is really deeply involved and encouraging this dialogue and openly, as we said, without a lot of diplomacy, saying what you're expecting from the political parties in Macedonia. Does it mean that the role of OSCE will be even more stronger in this process?
I can confirm, and this is also my impression, that what you just said, that the role is, I mean, of the internationals has become more vocal. Because for long times we heard more appeals. Of course, behind the closed doors there were always meetings and maybe more open discussions. But since beginning of last week we heard a more open vocal speech, in the sense of that what has been done so far is not satisfactory. The OSCE has a role first, that we are everywhere where of course the stability is somehow at stake. This is why we were in Kumanovo, and we are there and we could provide more help maybe if we are requested also in the I mean, we are already active in the development of the institutions, but we are not direct mediator as OSCE and especially as the mission between government and opposition.
You're just involved together with the EU and
Yes,
US embassy and everything. This political crisis really began when the opposition disclosure those conversations from the wiretapping. What do you think? What is the next step? Everybody expects some investigation of this allegation. How can it be done? How these wrongdoings can be investigated?
Well, of course, there are instruments in place already. One is this material has a political aspect and a legal aspect. About possible wrongdoings, there would be institutions in place, especially the prosecution, the courts, but their position is also under discussion. And on the other side, the political issues, you can create a parliamentary investigating body, but I heard now from different sides, including from the special representative of our presidency, of our chairmanship for the Western Balkans, that he mentioned the creation of a special investigative body that would be more broad-based, and I mean, he did not design it in detail, but would get a public trust.
What does it mean, a special investigative body? Should it be from the experts, from foreign experts, or from the experts from Macedonia, from here? Of
course, the better solution is with the persons from here. Maybe persons who are not yet involved, who are not part of the political discussion so far, but who are knowledgeable and respected. I mean, the role of international, it's always delicate if you include internationals. I would not suggest this. This depends but if the politicians and in this country would request this, we would think about, of course.
Yes, there are a lot of critics, like involving the foreign specialists is maybe against the sovereignty, against the constitution. But you said if the political parties agree, that then can happen. It will be not easy to find such a person in Macedonia, as may I say, because on those conversations we have a chance to hear on the wiretapping. Even we heard how the politicians were appointing the judges from the both political parties in the governing coalition. So how we can expect really people who are independent and who are experts to carry this investigation?
You mentioned now the judiciary. I mean, the OSCE is working very much with the judiciary. We work in different fields with the Judge Academy, with this new law on criminal procedure, with these agencies about anti-discrimination. But we are also aware of the situation. In 2009, there was a survey where judges of this country could answer the question how they perceive their own situation. Most of them answered, and there were a lot of them who said in the appointments the things are not as they should be, that the appointments always follow objective criteria. And also they said, and also even the Minister of Justice was quoted as saying, that the judiciary is under pressure from executive, from political parties, and also from the business. So it's not easy to find somebody who has this trust, but there is no alternative. You must work with the people that are here.
OSCE has spent a lot of money of training the judiciary in the past year.
Yes.
Do you think you have succeeded, or these projects failed because of the situation we have now in the
There is very rarely in life a complete success or a complete failure. I am optimist, this is true for other institutions, that there is a long-term effect in the society and in these institutions. But of course, there must be a political will. I mean, I think that many judges are qualified, that they are of good will, but of course they cannot, they live in this country, they live in the conditions, and they live, of course, with this political environment. Yeah? The political will must be there, of course, to respect these institutions.
In this political crisis, it was really hard to see any political will. Also, considering the investigation, really the biggest problem is the prosecutor. Mm-hmm. So how can that be solved? Maybe a prosecutor from a foreign country, or again a new independent person to carry on.
Well, I don't want to speculate on concrete persons, but of course the prosecution is part of the judiciary, but it's not a court. We're aware of this. The prosecution must work according to, must be independent, what they raise with the highest standards. And but as you said already before, questions of sovereignty are touched if internationals are called in. They can ask for support, of course, but we need a person, and not only one person, prosecutors that live up to the highest standards and who are left in peace to do their job.
This week, 2 ministers resigned, mm-hmm. and also Mr. Sasha Mialko, who was a really crucial figure in the government. How do you assess these resigns? Can and how that help in solving the political crisis?
The resignations are part of this dynamics we described before and we discussed before. What effect they can have is to trigger now discussions about the responsibility in general of office holders, and also to open maybe the other parties involved to say something is going on. We are on a different basis now discussing, but of course the responsibility of persons, of office holders, wherever is not, let's say, done when they resign. What they do in their office is still open to investigation, to juridical and to political investigation.
So this both minister can be prosecuted if there is.
If there were wrongdoings, if these things are proved, what are now discussed, of course nobody is outside the prosecution.
Tensions are not only in Kumanovo. We have tensions right now in Skopje. Mm-hmm. Before the protests, mm-hmm. One on Sunday, which is organized by opposition, and mm-hmm. also the governing Vumara de PMNE will organize a protest on Monday evening. Mm-hmm. There is a fear that there might be even clashes, mm-hmm. and the things can really go wrong. What do you think about this situation?
We always, as OSCE, defended the right of citizens to protest and to express their opinion publicly, also in the streets. But demonstrations have certain risks, even if not two groups with different opinions meet, but even from one group. We have this not only here, we have this in many countries. In my own country, demonstrations go wrong. Especially, of course, if two groups meet. We appeal again, and the special representative did this in public form, to exercise maximum restraint during demonstrations. I mean, the citizens are free to say what they want and what they think is correct, but there is no justification for violence, to attack persons, or to destroy property, whatever property, or public items.
We heard yesterday one declaration from political leaders that they support the right to protest, and that mm-hmm. they are against the violence, but they signed that because maybe the foreign ambassadors were there. Should we trust them that they will restrain from any violence?
Well, I mean, we have, of course, seen self-commitments political in the past about elections or in other occasions that were not respected. But I think now the politicians see how serious the situation is and that the country is observed from many sides. I mean, first from their own society, also from outside observers. And maybe the motivation is stronger this time to respect the commitments.
Also, the most important will be the role of the police, yes. Of course. On the previous protests, we really have clashes with the police, between the demonstrators and the police, and also the opposition really strongly accused them because of the police brutality. Mm-hmm. OSCE is also involved in training the police. Yes. And working with them a lot. What is your comment about what happened on the past protests?
Well, as you said, we work with the police, the OSCE since long, to develop a community-oriented police according to democratic standards, human rights, also a police which communicates in their leadership with the public. In general, I think we register a big progress in the police. That with demonstrations is always one of the most challenging issues for the police because there are dynamics, violence, acts. The policemen themselves can be attacked. It's always difficult in the situation, but of course they have their obligations. Yeah? What I would say that I cannot comment on what, because some things we do not see. We do not see all acts of each individual police officer what he did. Of course, they must be responsible, and if there are wrongdoings from their side, you mentioned the word police brutality. It must be prosecuted as well.
You have mentioned the media and their role and their really crucial reporting from the incident in Kumanovo, that they have a really crucial role not to get the situation even worse. But also OSCE is criticizing the media situation a lot in Macedonia. What is the situation now?
As many viewers know, we have in the OSCE a special institution, the Special Representative for the Freedom of Media, Mrs. Mijatovic. She knows the country very well. She has been here several times. She spoke to the Prime Minister, to other high-ranking persons. She raised her voice when there was something going on, and she is our main person in this respect, but the mission is also there to observe the situation. As the viewers know, in the ranking that these media watchdogs are doing are not very positive for the development of the media freedom in this country. Freedom House and Reporters Without Borders and this, they rank the country not very positive. We have seen developments like bad conditions for the journalists, self-censorship, censorship, biased advertisement, and a relatively poor performance of the public TV. And but there are also positive developments: the abolition of the defamation paragraph and the start of the self-regulation ethics council and so on.
But that haven't changed much in the media situation. What do you think? Who is the main problem in what's going on in the media? Who is the most responsible?
I would say that the main problem is influence from political and business side on objective media and unbiased media. This is one factor, yeah. But also the working conditions the journalists have. They are more easy subject to pressure than in countries where their working conditions are better.
So what can we expect maybe for the next government to do to change this situation in the media?
like in many other fields, the solution is not so much in new laws. It's in improved politics. We speak of good governance also in this field. This means to let the media do their work, and as far as the public media are concerned, the public media does not mean government media. Public media is the media of the instruments of the society. This means these media should also have representative, let's say, decision-making bodies. With maybe, of course, I cannot give advice in detail, but also the trade unions could be represented, the municipalities, the religious institutions.
There are many examples in Europe how they solve this problem in the previous century, actually, but there are examples. This political crisis will end with elections. That's obvious. Do you think that this government can organize the next elections in this situation?
You know that OSCE has an institution called ODIHR that is observing elections and presenting reports. It did this during the last years, and this ODIHR said that the elections were well administered from the administrative point of view.
But only from administrative?
From administrative point of view. And it was also, I mean, there was a choice. It was not that that you could not, I mean, the opposition has votes, It is not that you don't have an alternative, but of course there were a lot of, I mean, let's say a number of irregularities in different fields. It has to do with the advertisement, it has to do with the voter intimidation, and again, we are not talking about changing the laws. We must have high ethics of those people who have influence also on the public administration to observe strict neutrality, and I think this is one of the most important issues government and opposition have to discuss now. I don't make a prognosis whether or when there will be the next elections, but I think, and I understood from the opposition that this is one of the issues they want to discuss.
Of course, they are asking for a transition government, or a government which will be made by experts, or maybe the government which all those four political parties which begin the dialogue should participate in the next government, and that government should prepare the elections. So it will be discussed, as you said, and maybe agreed, but it's you don't expect this government maybe to organize these elections. And mentioning the monitoring report, the main critics were there that this government is not making difference between the state and the party. So how can they even organize next elections?
Well, I mean, this is, you see, of course, what you say was part of the report is also not only in the field of elections, also in other fields, that the influence of political parties and majority parties in particular is too strong on state institutions. We talk about the politicization, but at the end they are always human beings that do the process, that move the process, maybe with a stronger counter control, that wherever you have one person from the government side in these things to decide, then also to have an opposition person to see. I mean, you have this in the election commission, but still it is not perfect. Yeah.
Do you think that Macedonia should have an elections without having a census?
Well, we supported the process. I was, at the beginning of my mandate here, was this discussion about the census. I mean, the census is originally made for other purposes. Not so much even to find out about the ethnic proportions in the country, but for, like in all other European states, for planning purposes. What about the infrastructure, schools and so on, yeah? But there is no direct necessary link between the census, but of course it would be useful to have a census, but you must again depoliticize the census. The census is not there to define rights, but to define planning.
Mr. Ambassador, you're leaving Macedonia, as you told me on Sunday. So can you tell us at the end of this interview, what do you expect this political crisis to end soon, and what do you expect how the Macedonia will continue in the future?
Of course, it is unfortunate for me personally to leave in such a moment. My mandate ends today, exactly, I have to say, after 4 years, and I don't remember in my time to have seen such a difficult situation. But there is, as I said, the politics go on. There is no alternative but to find a solution. Maybe a bit stronger pressure is maybe not the word, influence of the internationals than we would wish. Yeah? But what I can say is that the society has matured. The people are more aware of their role, and they are more critical. They do not easily believe everything that is told to them. And from this point of view, and of course a bit we could contribute with our work, I look with a certain optimism into the future for this country and for the citizens.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Breit. I wish you luck at your next post at Turkmenistan.
Yes.
Ова беше интервјуто со амбасадорот на ОБСЕ Ралф Брeit. Останете со програмата на Телма. Следува интервјуто со професорот Светомир Шкарич, што го направиме од колега Боби Христов деновиве. Имајте пријатна вечер.